Tonight, a lawsuit claiming the White House urged Fox News to publish a report saying that a Democratic staffer's death was connected to the WikiLeaks release of information damaging to Hillary Clinton. The story, completely false, finally retracted by Fox News, but not before it covered it for days on end. This could be yet another legal mess for the White House. Then, as independent counsel Robert Mueller beefs up his legal team, our panel of attorneys, we're going to take a look at what some of those names tell us about where this Russia probe may be headed. Also, the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department taking a look at affirmative action on college campuses, but it's not trying to protect minorities. Instead, it's trying to make sure that whites are not being discriminated against. Evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. A lot to cover in the next 60 minutes. And in a few minutes, we will get to our legal panel to weigh in on these issues. But first, our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, busy as ever, here with the latest out of Washington. And Andrew, I guess the right way to start is where to start.
Well, we're going to start with the administration, Rich, today backing a bill that would again curb immigration into the United States. Only this time their focus is on legal immigration. White House advisor Stephen Miller running point on this during today's press briefing. The administration wants to reduce the number of immigrants legally allowed to enter the U.S. every year and change the system to favor people with skills, savings, and income potential. They say doing so will raise wages and help more Americans find jobs, but critics disagree and say it's just another case of the president trying to play to his angry white base. There's little chance of the bill getting a vote in Congress, however, and even less of a chance of it becoming law. The other big story out of Washington, the number of key Republicans and others now openly pushing back on the president and head of their party. At the top of that list, at least right now, is this man, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, who the White House is already targeting and seeking primary challengers to run against him. Flake saying that Republicans are now acting as, quote, willing accomplices to a president who undermines what the GOP and conservative movement stand for. He even wrote in Politico, quote, my party is in denial about Donald Trump. We created him, and now we're rationalizing him. When will it stop? And Flake is not alone. Utah's Orrin Hatch rejecting calls from the White House to revisit health care yet again, saying the Senate is just too divided. And it appears as though lawmakers are working on a bipartisan push to secure federal subsidies for Obamacare, even as the president threatens to cancel them to help, as he says, quote, make Obamacare die. Another key Republican senator, Chuck Grassley, who heads the Judiciary Committee, saying he will not allow any hearings this year for a new attorney general, throwing cold water on the president's widely reported hopes to fire Jeff Sessions. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, himself rumored to be considering his own resignation, contradicting the president on China and North Korea. Trump blamed China for not controlling the Koreans. Tillerson saying, quote, we certainly don't blame the Chinese. Even the Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Paul K. Zucknuft, saying this week he will not implement any ban on transgender service members, despite the president's announcement to do just that on Monday. That trend prompting this quote from former Assistant Attorney General Jack Goldsmith, who served under George W. Bush, quote, what is most remarkable is the extent to which his senior officials act as if Trump were not the chief executive. Never has a president been so regularly ignored or contradicted by his own officials. The president is a figurehead who barks out positions and desires, but his senior subordinates carry on with different commitments. Rich?
Thank you very much, Andrew. And now to another story that is getting a lot of attention. The unsolved murder of DNC staffer Seth Rich and the accusation that the White House has coordinated with Fox News on this fake story about his death. Fox, they ran the story saying that he was murdered because he leaked tens of thousands of DNC emails to WikiLeaks. Sean Hannity kept reporting on it even after Fox retracted it and Rich's family debunked it. Take a listen for yourself.
If this is true, and Seth Rich gave WikiLeaks these DNC emails, this blows the whole Russia collusion narrative completely out of the water.
Fox News contributor and former homicide detective Rod Wheeler, he was at the center of this story that ran on Fox, and he is the one who has brought the lawsuit against that same network. Wheeler says the network fabricated his quotes.
The worst quote that was attributed to me was the fact that I supposedly said that I knew for a fact that Seth Rich was in contact and sending emails to WikiLeaks, when in fact I had never made that statement ever.
And here's where the White House allegedly got involved. Wheeler says he was contacted by this man, GOP donor Ed Bukowski. Suit says he and Bukowski went to the White House to discuss the story with then Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Spicer originally denied knowing anything about this, but now he admits he did meet with those guys to quote-unquote catch up. And here's White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
The president had no knowledge of the story, and it's completely untrue that he or the White House involvement in the story.
However, now Wheeler's lawyer is saying he will want to depose Spicer and even President Trump in order to get to the bottom of this. Now, for a minute, let's forget about the White House and just think, imagine any one of us, you watching at home, us at the table, imagine you were the Rich family. First, your son is brutally murdered. Then, a network, in this case Fox, keeps talking about your dead son being involved in a conspiracy that never, ever happened. Here's what the Rich family spokesperson had to say.
Over and over again, because of conspiracy theories that have popped up, they have been deprived the opportunity to move forward. They've been deprived the opportunity to seek some new normal. And frankly, they feel like the police have been deprived of the ability to actually prosecute this crime.
I want to bring in our legal panel. Jim Koussouris is a criminal defense attorney in Manhattan. He sits on the board of directors of the New York City Criminal Bar Association. He frequently lectures at New York Law School and the bar associations in Queens and New York City. Mayo Bartlett, an attorney at the law offices of Mayo Bartlett PLLC and a former chief of the Bias Crimes Unit at the Westchester County DA's office. And Mark Furners, adjunct professor at the Elizabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University. He's argued many high-profile cases, including all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. All right, guys. There's the human and the legal of this, but let's be clear, and this is not up for any debate. This is, when people say fake news, this is the definition of it. A guy brutally murdered, tangential, uncorroborated innuendos that will get to who connected with whom, who allegedly had conversations and for what agendas, but nonetheless, a network keeps promulgating falsehoods night after night as a family attempts to grieve. Now, that's despicable on its face, but not the guy that was brought in by the same network in question, Jimmy, to, in effect, investigate this. He's the one bringing the lawsuit to say they made it all up and they attributed stuff that I never, ever said. And now, it allegedly, you've got now Sean Spicer, who's changed his story. First, he never met. That's a lie. He did meet with the guys. Now we're going to find out, and by the way, he was fired unceremoniously. Let's just remember that, by the way, okay, by this White House and this president. He's now going to be, in effect, a star witness to say, who else knew about it? Allegation is the president directly had his fingerprints on it, and he said, let's go with this story. Confirmed? No. But nonetheless, that's out there. And if we've seen anything in 6 months about the president's interest and, I'd say, lack of judgment in getting involved in things that he shouldn't be involved, I don't think anyone at this table would put it past him about the capacity to do so. But from a human level, this is horrible.
There's no question that from a human level, it is absolutely despicable for this family to be going through not only the loss, but then to have to listen to allegations of this type of activity which precipitated their son's murder. And to the political side of it, when you listen to that clip that you just had from Sean Hannity, when is the need to debunk falsely or suspiciously the whole Russia probe going to end? Time and time and time again, the clip from Hannity was, if this is true, it blows up the whole Russia collusion thing. Nobody can just let this investigation run its course and get a result from people who are charged with investigating it. And instead, it's one suspicious act after another to try to debunk it. And that's what is just so mind-boggling here, that this story had to get put out only to then learn that it's fabricated. And you know,
and even after, by the way, Fox News, as an organization, said there is no merit to the story, completely distanced themselves from it, and said it was a falsehood. one of their voices continues to perpetrate the story that's out there.
What's most troubling to me is I heard tape-recorded conversations where this individual is speaking to Fox News editors or producers, and he says on that tape, "But I didn't say that," and the response is, "Well, I know you didn't say that, but," and then it's reported as though he said it. It's mind-boggling what's going on here.
Well, it's really not that mind-boggling, and here's why.
It's a little mind-boggling.
It's not mind-boggling at all, because this is a complaint, and anybody in the world can go into a court and file a complaint. Let's not overblow this. Nobody in the administration is named as a defendant in the case. People at Fox News are being sued by a guy who's suing Fox News for racial discrimination, by the way. So if he had anything to implicate anybody in the administration in this, not Trump, but even his underlings, doubtless they would be sued. That's the first thing. The second thing is, let's not be babes in the woods here. Unfortunately, for better or worse, this is how the game is played in the media on both sides. Yes, it is, because listen, the WikiLeaks dumps showed, just let me finish this sentence, showed that there was collaboration and coordination between the Clinton campaign and members of the media. It's a despicable state of affairs.
I'll leave you,
but let's just not single out Fox.
And leave to me the media, okay? I don't know of anyone, and I know people at Fox News who are beyond apoplectic over this story because they believe that as an organization, this is not somebody put something out on InfoWars. Fox News, they knew this guy was in there. And as Jimmy said, Mayo, there's audio tapes of him saying, "I didn't say that." And they still said, "Well, we're going to run with it anyway." And after they even debunked it as a story, with grieving family there as an aside, maybe their most viewed town.
Is a consequence of the First Amendment.
They continue to go there. Moreover, Mark can say it's nobody implicated in the administration.
Correct.
We already know Sean Spicer has now already changed the story. After saying he knew nothing about it, he then agreed that he met with Mr. Butkowski and he also met with Mr. Wheeler. I believe that there's more hair on this dog.
Well, I think that, number one, you have a news organization that hopefully is interested in maintaining its appearance of integrity. And if you are knowingly putting out false stories, and to Jim's point, if there's an audio tape of them saying they know it's false, but they're going to put it out there anyway, well, that's a significant problem. And at some point, you have to go back and look at Brian Williams, who basically lost his ability to be on air for a substantial amount of time. And you can call it fake news, but when you look at what he did, he said he took sniper fire.
He didn't fabricate,
but he didn't fabricate a story involving someone else's death. So in this situation, you're looking at, as far as I can see, you're looking at libel, you're looking at slander. I think that legal action probably will eventually be taken against Fox News. And then you have to start to wonder, why is Sean Hannity still there if he's willing to do that?
But to me, Mayo, you're right. But now we go beyond the exposure of a news organization. Now we go to an administration, because if Fox decided to do this story in a vacuum, then it's a story about, yes, there's the credibility aspect, there's the exposure standpoint to a civil suit and everything else, certainly something that Fox is not unfamiliar with. But if the allegations are proven true, then not only members of the administration, but even the president took a story and advocated for it to be put out there for obviously purposes other than a search for the truth, but for political distraction and also character assassination of a dead person. Now all of a sudden we're talking about something different.
This is just atmospherics.
I have to say that there's no evidence that he knew the story was false. The only evidence that involved President Trump was that there was a text from the Republican donor saying the president's looked at it and he wants it out right away.
Jim, I wouldn't go so far as to say there's no evidence. And we talk about whether there's no evidence about lots of things, which later we learn there's evidence about.
I'm just saying right now,
there's no evidence that maybe is public, but that doesn't mean there's no evidence.
And we're sued as defendants. This is just
we'd be doing the same thing. We'd be doing the same thing by saying that there is evidence. There's a
No,
text.
but I think we're not, because if you say there's no evidence, it gives the implication
Then
that
sue
nothing
them.
occurred.
Then sue them.
Well,
they're not suing.
all
Because
I'm-
there may be there's
all
an
I'm
investigation
saying-
that's going
all
on right
I'm
now.
saying-
We'll probably
all
learn
I'm
a lot
saying
more
is with
about it, and
respect-
Mr. Mueller may look into that
All I'm
as well.
saying is, with
He may.
respect to the president,
Probably
all
not.
there is the text saying he saw it, likes
text
it,
from
whatever,
a fellow
and,
Fox News
and he
controller.
and he
He's putting
wants
words
to and
in
he
the
wants you to go
president's
with it.
mouth.
That doesn't mean he knows that it's
No, it
false.
doesn't mean that.
And I don't know that the grieving is a product of the First Amendment. If
Sure
in
it
fact,
is.
wait a minute, Mark,
Put on the big boy pants.
When you're
Mark,
dealing
That's
with
the way
Mark,
it is.
Mark,
It's a
Mark-
sad fact.
Okay, but, Mark-
it's life.
Mark-
It's life. It's a matter of public concern.
Mark, I understand that, but what I'm saying is certainly the fact that his death is publicized
It is.
is the First Amendment. But I don't know if the First Amendment necessarily protects
If it's
a
fa-
network. Let me finish.
If it's
Let me
false,
finish.
it doesn't. If
That's
it's
what I'm
no-
saying.
if it's
If a network,
maliciously and knowingly false, it
if
doesn't.
somebody in the network responds to a guy who says, "Wait a minute, I didn't say that," and the response is, "I know you didn't say that," I don't know that
Where
added
was it
Hey,
grieving.
Jim,
before?
just one
Where
thing,
was it
Jim.
before?
Jim, wouldn't it be wonderful if our criminal clients got the same presumption that this administration gets? Because
do,
it doesn't
they
seem
do.
to matter what drips out, you still have the
Difference
presumption that
between
nothing
the
was
court
done
of
wrong.
public opinion, where our clients
All
are
right.
presumed guilty, and a court of law, where they're supposed to
Coming
be
up
presumed
next, tell me if this sounds familiar, another legal entanglement involving the White House. You have the special counsel, Robert Mueller. He's just added another top-flight attorney to his team for the Russia probe. His background, it could telegraph what Mueller is now looking for.